Knew something was wrong the moment I walked into my parents' dining room. My father had invited everyone for dinner, but the table looked less like a family gathering and more like a business meeting. There were no casual jokes, no music playing in the background, and no smell of my mother's usual homemade dessert. Instead, there were expensive folders placed neatly beside every plate. I stopped near the doorway. "What is this?" I asked. My father looked up from his seat. "Kumain, Ethan." His voice was cold. I slowly pulled out the chair beside my younger sister, Lily. "Dad, you said this was just dinner." "It is dinner," my mother said quietly. I looked at her. "Mom, then why are there contracts on the table?" She avoided my eyes. That made my stomach tighten. Across from me, my cousin Adrian leaned back in his chair with a confident smile. He was wearing a black designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His expensive watch reflected the light above us. He looked completely comfortable. Too comfortable. I turned toward him. "What's going on?" Adrian smiled. "I thought your father already told you." "He didn't." Adrian glanced at my father. My father cleared his throat. "Adrian has made an offer to help the family." I frowned. "Help with what?" "Our property business," my father replied. I leaned forward. "What kind of offer?" Adrian finally pushed one of the folders toward me. "A major investment." I opened it. My eyes moved across the first page, then the second, then the third. My heartbeat slowly increased. "This isn't just an investment." Adrian's smile widened. "Of course it is." "No." I placed the papers on the table. "This gives you controlling rights over the property." My father immediately frowned. "Ethan, don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm reading the contract." Adrian gave a quiet laugh. "You always were too suspicious." I looked directly at him. "And you always were too kept staring at my father, waiting for him to explain himself. Instead, Adrian reached for his glass of water and calmly said, "Uncle Richard, maybe I should explain the offer." My father nodded. "Go ahead." Adrian turned toward me. "I'm willing to invest $5 million into the family business." Daniel immediately smiled. $5 million. Adrian nodded. "And I'm not asking for everything in return. I only want controlling rights until the investment is recovered." I looked back at the contract. "That isn't what this says." Adrian's smile disappeared for a moment. I tapped the page. "This clause gives you permanent control if certain conditions aren't met." My mother finally spoke. "Ethan, maybe you misunderstood it." I looked at her. "Mom, I didn't misunderstand anything." Adrian leaned forward. "Then explain it." I pointed toward the document. "If the business misses its targets for 2 consecutive quarters, Adrian can take full operational control." My father sighed. And that means we could lose control of our own property." Daniel shook his head. "You're making this sound worse than it is." I looked at him. "Would you sign a contract like this?" He hesitated. Adrian answered for him. "Daniel understands that opportunities require trust." I laughed bitterly. "Trust?" I looked at Adrian. "You want control over a property worth far more than $5 million. His expression hardened. "You think I'm trying to steal from the family?" "I think you're protecting yourself. That's called business. And this is called a bad deal." My father suddenly slammed his hand against the table. "Enough." Everyone went silent. He stared at me with anger in his eyes. "Why do you always have to challenge everything?" I felt my throat tighten. "Because nobody else is asking questions." My father pointed at the contract. "Adrian is offering us a way out." "A way out of what?" "Our financial problems." I froze. I didn't move. I just stared at my father. "Are you seriously asking me to leave?" My father crossed his arms. "If you can't respect the decision we've made, yes." I felt my fingers tighten around the edge of the table. "I'm your son." "I know." "Then why are you talking to me like I'm a stranger?" My mother looked down. Daniel sighed. "Ethan, just stop making this difficult." I turned toward him. "Difficult?" "Yes. You're willing to give Adrian control of everything without even questioning him." Daniel shrugged. "He has money." I almost laughed. "So that's enough." "It should be." I looked around the table. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father looked angry. Daniel looked impatient. Lily looked terrified. And Adrian looked pleased. That was when I understood. This wasn't about the contract anymore. Adrian had already convinced them that money made him more valuable than me. I looked at Lily. "Do you agree with him?" Her lips trembled. I don't know. I softened my voice. You've read the contract? She nodded. Only some of it. And what do you think? She glanced at our father. I think Ethan may be right. My father's face darkened. Lily. She immediately lowered her eyes. I felt something break inside me. Even she was afraid to speak. Adrian leaned back. Look at what you're doing, Ethan. I turned toward him. What am I doing? Creating conflict. You brought the contract. And I brought a solution. No, I said. You brought a deal that benefits you. He smiled. Maybe you're angry because nobody asked you to run the business. I stared at him. I don't want to run it. Then what do you want? I paused. I want my family to make an informed decision. Adrian laughed softly. You always have to be the smartest person in the room. I felt my jaw tighten. I don't need to be the smartest person here. I pointed at the contract. I just need everyone to actually read it. My father. I sat inside my car for almost 20 minutes without starting the engine. I kept staring at the house through the windshield. That house had been my entire world for most of my life. I had celebrated birthdays there. I had opened my first school report there. I had cried there after my first heartbreak. I had even sat beside my father in that same living room when he lost his job years ago. I remembered telling him, "Don't worry, Dad. We'll get through it." And now he had told me not to come back. I finally started the engine. My phone buzzed again. For a moment, I thought it might be my mother. It wasn't. It was Adrian. You should have listened. I stared at the message. Then another one appeared. You could have stayed part of the family. I clenched my jaw. I typed a reply. You didn't buy my family. I stopped. I deleted it. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing he had hurt me. Instead, I put my phone face down. Then I drove. I had no idea where I was going. My apartment was small, but it was mine. Yet when I opened the door that night, it didn't feel like home. I dropped my keys onto the table and sat on the couch. Silence filled the room. For the first time, I had nobody to call. I opened my phone again. I almost called my mother. My thumb hovered over her name. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted her to tell me that Dad was angry and didn't mean what he said. But I remembered her silence at the table. I locked my phone. A few minutes later, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it carefully. Sophia stood outside. The moment she saw my face, her expression changed. Ethan, I stepped aside. Come. She entered and looked around. What happened? I sat down. My family chose Adrian. She frowned. What do you mean? I told her everything. I explained the contract, my father's anger, Daniel's betrayal, my mother's silence, and the final message. When I finished soft, I stared at those words until the screen began to blur. Months ago, Victor had offered me a chance to become his business partner. I had turned him down because my family needed my time. Back then, I believed loyalty meant putting my family before myself. Tonight, I wondered if I had confused loyalty with sacrifice. Sophia watched me carefully. Who is it? Victor Hayes. The businessman? I nodded. What does he want? I showed her the email. She read it silently. Then she smiled. Maybe you should call him. I looked at her. Tonight? Why not? I hesitated. What if it's too late? Sophia shook her head. Ethan, your family just told you that you don't belong in their future. She pointed at my phone. Maybe it's time you started building your own. I took a deep breath. Then I pressed Victor's number. He answered after the second ring. Ethan, yeah. There was a short silence. I read your email. I figured you would eventually. I almost laughed. You knew this would happen? No, but I knew you were wasting your talent trying to solve everyone else's problems. I looked down. You still want me as a partner? Victor didn't hesitate. More than ever. I closed my eyes. I don't have much money. I didn't ask about your money. I've got family problems. I didn't ask about your family. I might have nothing by tomorrow. Victor's voice became serious. Then we'll start with nothing. I opened my eyes. What exactly are you offering? A chance. I waited. A chance to build the technology platform we discussed. You handle development and strategy. I'll handle the investors and operations. I looked at Sophia. She gave me a small nod. Victor continued. But I need to know one thing. What? Are you calling me because you're angry? I didn't answer immediately, because the honest answer was yes. I was angry. I was hurt. I wanted my father to regret his decision. I wanted Adrian to realize he returned to my parents' house the next morning because Despite everything that had happened the night before, I still believe my father might have regretted his words. I stood outside the front door for several seconds with my hand on the handle. I remembered his message. Don't come back. Yet I was there. I told myself that parents sometimes said cruel things when they were angry. I want to believe that. I opened the door and walked inside. The house was strangely quiet. I stepped into the dining room and immediately stopped. My father was sitting at the head of the table. Adrian sat beside him. A man in a dark gray suit sat across from them with a leather briefcase beside his chair. I recognized him as a lawyer. My heart sank. I slowly looked at my father. Why is there a lawyer here? My father didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed toward the empty chair. Sit down, Ethan. I remained standing. I'm asking why he's here. Adrian leaned back and gave me a calm smile. Because we're finishing the agreement. I stared at him. What agreement? My father finally spoke. The family has decided to accept Adrian's investment. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I had heard. You're serious? Yes. You didn't change the contract? No. I walked toward the table and picked up the folder. I opened the first page, then the second. My stomach tightened. I turned several pages quickly. Nothing had changed. The same clauses were there. The same control rights. The same conditions that could eventually hand Adrian control of our family property. I looked at my father. Dad, you can't sign this. His expression hardened. Why not? Because this doesn't just give Adrian an investment. I held up the contract. It gives him control. Adrian sighed. Ethan, you're doing it again. I turned toward him. Doing what? Try to make a normal business agreement sound dangerous. I laughed bitterly. Normal? I stared at my father after he said those words. One final chance? Yes. I slowly pulled out the chair and sat down. What exactly do you want me to do? My father looked at the contract. Sign your approval. I almost laughed. You want me to approve a contract that gives Adrian control over our property? I want you to stop fighting your family. I looked at Adrian. Is that what you told him? Adrian shook his head. I didn't tell him anything. Your father understands business. I turned toward my father. Do you? His eyes narrowed. Watch your tone. I'm trying to protect you. No, he said. You're trying to protect your own interests. I felt my chest tighten. What interests? The property. I stared at him. You think I want the property? Why else would you keep fighting this deal? Because it's dangerous. Adrian interrupted. Dangerous? Yes. He leaned forward. Ethan, I've built companies worth millions. And I've seen companies disappear overnight. His smile faded. You've always been jealous of me. I shook my head. I was never jealous of you. Really? Really? Then why can't you be happy for me? Because this isn't about your success. I tapped the contract. This is about what you're taking. Adrian stood slowly. Taking? Yes. I'm putting $5 million into this family. And getting control worth far more. My father stood too. That is enough. I looked at him. Dad, please listen to me. I've listened enough. No, you haven't. My voice became louder. You haven't asked why Adrian wants this property so badly. Adrian's expression changed. My father noticed. What do you mean? I looked at Adrian. Tell him. Adrian stared at me. Tell him what? Tell him why you refuse to invest in anything else. He said nothing. I continued. Because this property isn't worth $5 million. You know it. I know it. Everyone who has studied the development plans, Kay. I remained standing because I could no longer understand what my father wanted from me. What does supporting my family mean to you? I asked. My father stared at me. It means standing together when someone offers us a way out. I've stood with you my entire life. Then prove it now. By approving this? Yes. I shook my head. That isn't loyalty. That's surrender. Adrian slowly leaned back. Ethan, you're making this personal. It became personal when my father started calling me selfish. My father stepped closer. You have always been selfish. I stared at him. Always. Yes. I felt something twist inside my chest. Do you remember when you lost your job? My father frowned. Don't bring that up. I worked 2 jobs so you could keep paying the mortgage. I never asked you to. You didn't have to. I looked toward my mother. Do you remember when Mom needed money for her surgery? My mother began crying. Ethan, please stop. I used my savings. My father raised his voice. And you never let us forget it. I stared at him in disbelief. I wasn't reminding you to hurt you. I was reminding you because you said I never helped. Daniel suddenly walked into the room. What is happening? My father pointed at me. Your brother refuses to support the family. Daniel looked at me. Again, I turned toward him. What does that mean? You always create problems when Dad makes a decision. I laughed bitterly. Do you even know what's in this contract? Daniel shrugged. Adrian is investing $5 million. That wasn't my question. He became silent. I pushed the folder toward him. Read it. He opened it. His eyes moved across the pages. After several seconds, he looked uncomfortable. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. Then say that. He closed the folder. I don't understand all the legal language. I looked at him. Exactly. Adrian stood. This is ridiculous. I turned toward him. WH. For several seconds, I couldn't move. My father's answer kept echoing inside my head. No. I looked at him, hoping he would take it back. He didn't. Dad. I whispered, you don't mean that. Edo. My mother immediately began crying. Richard, please. He turned toward her. This is his choice. I shook my head. No, you made the choice. My father pointed toward the door. You refused to support us. I refused to sign away our future. You refused to trust your family. I refused to trust Adrian. Adrian stepped closer. You still don't understand. I looked at him. Then explain it. He smiled coldly. I offered your family a way to survive, and you demanded control in return. That's business. No, I said. That's leverage. His smile disappeared. My father interrupted. Enough. Pack your things. I stared at him. You're serious? You heard me. I looked toward my mother. Mom, please say something. She covered her face. I don't know what to do. You could defend your son. She cried harder. I can't. That answer hurt more than anything else. I turned toward Daniel. And you? He looked away. I laughed softly. Of course. I looked at Lily. She was standing near the doorway with tears in her eyes. Lily. She shook her head. Etan, I'm sorry. I walked toward her. You don't have to apologize. My father shouted. Don't make this harder for everyone. I turned around. Harder? My voice shook. You're throwing your own son out because a man with money gave you an ultimatum. Adrian crossed his arms. I never asked your father to disown you. I looked at him. You didn't have to. He raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? You knew exactly what would happen. For the first time, Adrian looked uncomfortable. My father pointed upstairs. Go. I stood there for another moment. Then I walked upstairs. Every step felt heavier than the last. I entered my old bedroom and looked around. I remained inside my car, staring at the house through the windshield. I wanted to leave. I wanted to drive somewhere so far away that I would never have to see that house again. But my hands wouldn't move. My phone suddenly rang. I looked at the screen. Sophia. I answered. Hello. Ethan? Where are you? I tried to speak, but my voice broke. I'm outside my parents' house. What? I looked at the front door. Because they threw me out. There was silence. Then Sophia asked softly, what happened? I wiped my face. Adrian gave my father a choice. What choice? Me or his money? Sophia took a slow breath. And your father chose Adrian? Yes. Ethan, I don't understand. What? I gave them everything. My voice trembled. I gave them my time, my money, my plans. Whenever they needed me, I was there. Sophia remained quiet. I continued. And when I needed them, they chose someone else's money. You don't have to understand it tonight. I feel like I wasn't good enough. Don't say that. But it's true. No, Ethan. Their decision doesn't define your value. I looked down at my hands. What am I supposed to do now? She asked quietly. What are you going to do when they realize they were wrong? I didn't answer. I don't know. That's okay. I thought I knew what my future looked like. And now I have nothing. You have yourself. I gave a weak laugh. That doesn't feel like enough. It will. I looked toward the house one last time. I don't want revenge. Good. I just want them to regret this. Sophia paused. Then don't spend your life trying to make them regret it. What should I do? Build a life they can never take from you. Her words stayed in my mind. After he ended the call, I drove home. I placed my suitcase beside my bed and noticed the old photograph I had taken. I picked it up. My mother was smiling in the picture. I was a child again. I whispered, I don't know. Arrived at Victor Hayes' office the next morning with almost no money and no clear plan. Victor looked at me for a few seconds before saying, "You look exhausted." I didn't sleep. Because of your family? Because they threw me out. He nodded slowly. Then tell me everything. I told him about Adrian, the contract, my father, and the decision that ended with me leaving home. When I finished, Victor didn't offer sympathy. Instead, he asked, "Why did you spend so many years trying to prove yourself to people who had already decided what they wanted to believe?" I looked down. I thought they were my family. They are your family. That doesn't mean they understand your value. I swallowed. So your offer is still available. I looked up. You really mean that? Victor smiled. I was waiting for you to finally ask. I shook his hand. Then let's build something. The next few weeks were brutal. I rented a tiny apartment with one bedroom, one old desk, and barely enough space for my equipment. During the day, I worked on our technology platform. At night, I took temporary jobs to pay my bills. Sophia visited whenever she could. One evening, she found me staring at my laptop. "You've been looking at that screen for an hour. I can't solve this problem. Then take a break." "I don't have time." "You do if you're going to destroy yourself." I smiled weakly. "You sound like my mother." Sophia frowned. "I'm nothing like your mother." I laughed. "Fair point." She placed food beside me. "Eat. I'll eat later." "No. Now." I obeyed. Every small success should have made me happy. Instead, it reminded me that my family wasn't there. When our first prototype finally worked, I stared at the screen. I wanted to call my father. I wanted to say, "Dad, I did it." But I remembered his words. "You're no longer my son." So I closed my phone. Meanwhile, my family seemed happier than ever. Adrian bought Daniel an expensive sports CA. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. I had barely slept. Victor's words kept running through my mind. "Our first serious investor wants a meeting." I looked around my tiny apartment. The walls were plain. My desk was covered with papers, cables, and empty coffee cups. My bank balance was low enough to make me nervous. But for the first time in days, I didn't feel helpless. I picked up my phone and called Victor. "Are you awake?" He laughed. "It's 6 in the morning, Ethan." I couldn't sleep. Good. You're finally thinking about your future instead of your family." I sat on the edge of my bed. I keep thinking about what my father said. Then stop. "I can't." "You can." I was silent. Victor continued. "Your father made a decision. You don't have to keep making the same decision every morning by thinking about it." I rubbed my face. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't easy." "Then why are you so calm?" "Because I've already learned something you haven't." "What?" "People who reject your value don't become right just because they reject you." I stared at the floor. "That sounds simple." "It is simple." "Then why does it hurt so much?" Victor's voice softened. "Because you love them." I closed my eyes. That answer hurt because it was true. After the call, I started working. I spent the entire morning fixing the platform's payment system. By afternoon, I had solved one major problem. I stared at the screen. "It works." I tested it again. It worked. I laughed. For a moment, I wanted to celebrate. Then I remembered that nobody was waiting for my call. I opened my contacts. My father's name was still there. My thumb hovered over it. I almost called. Then I remembered the dining room. I remembered him looking at me and choosing Adrian. I locked my phone. "No, you whispered." I returned to work. That evening, Sophia arrived carrying 2 bags. She looked at my desk. "You haven't moved." I fixed the PAM. The investor meeting was 3 days away, but I felt as if I had only 3 hours to prepare. I called Victor. "What exactly does this investor want?" Victor answered, "Proof." "Proof of what?" "That your idea can become a real company." I looked at my unfinished presentation. "What if he says no?" "Then we find someone else." You make everything sound easy because you're thinking about failure before you've given yourself a chance to succeed. I sighed. Fair enough. I spent the next 2 days preparing. Every night, I worked until my eyes burned. Every morning, I reminded myself why I had started. Not for Adrian. Not for my father. For me. On the 3rd evening, Sophia came over. She looked at my desk. "You haven't slept again." "I'll sleep after the meeting." "You said that yesterday." "I'm in it this time." She picked up my presentation. "What's this?" "My investor pitch." She read the first page. You're nervous. Yes. Good. I frowned. Why is that good? Because it means this matters. I smiled. You always know what to say. No, I just know when you're lying to yourself. I laughed. Then my phone rang. It was Lily. I answered immediately. Lily, she whispered. Are you alone? Yes. What's wrong? I need to tell you something. My stomach tightened. What happened? Dad signed another document. What document? I don't know exactly. You said you'd send me the papers. I did. I checked my phone. I haven't received anything. I sent them from Mom's computer. Check again. There was silence. Then she whispered, Ethan, I think Dad doesn't know what he signed. I stood. What do you mean? Adrian brought several documents. Dad only looked at the first pages. My heart started racing. Where are the copies? I'll find them. Lily, be careful. I am. Don't let Adrian know you're helping me. I won't. The call ended. Sophia looked at me. What happened? I told her. Spent the entire night reviewing the documents Lily had sent me. Every number made my stomach tighter. The $5 million Adrian had promised my family was only a small part of the financial structure. The real loan was much larger, and my family's property had been placed behind it as security. I called Victor before sunrise. I need you to look at something. He answered sleepily. What happened? I found documents connected to Adrian's investment. Send them. I emailed everything. Several minutes passed. Then my phone rang. Victor sounded serious. Ethan, where did you get these? My sister sent them. Does your father know? I don't think so. You need legal advice. I know. Do not confront Adrian. Why? Because if these documents are real, he may have more at stake than your family property. He said silently. You think his company is in trouble? I think you should assume nothing. That answer made me more nervous. Later that afternoon, Sophia came over. I showed her the documents. She read them carefully. Ethan, this could destroy your family. I know. Then you need to tell them. I looked away. They won't listen. Maybe they will now. I shook my head. My father already chose Adrian. Sophia sat beside me. You don't have to save people who refuse to listen. I know. Then why are you still thinking about calling? Because they're still my family. She sighed. And that's exactly what makes this hard. I looked at the photograph of my mother. I don't want them to lose everything. Sophia became quiet. Then what do you want? I want them to know the truth, without getting yourself dragged back into their mess. I nodded. That. My phone buzzed. A message from Lily appeared. Please don't tell Dad I sent these. I replied immediately. I won't. Are you safe? She answered. For now. I stared at those two words. For now. I called her. She whispered, Ethan. What's? Arrived at Victor's office before sunrise. I had spent most of the night preparing, but my hands were still shaking. Victor noticed immediately. Nervous? A little. Good. I gave him a confused look. Why does everyone keep saying that? Because nervous people prepare. Overconfident people don't. I smiled. What if he hates the idea? Then he'll tell us. And if he says no, then we find another investor. I nodded. I like that answer. Victor handed me a cup of coffee. Today isn't about proving your family wrong. I know. Say it again. I looked at him. It's not about my family. Good. The investor arrived 20 minutes later. I stood and shook his hand. Mr. Hayes. Victor introduced us. This is Ethan Carter, the person behind the platform. The investor looked at me. You're younger than I expected. I smiled. I've heard that before. He sat down. Tell me why I should invest. I opened my presentation. Because this platform solves a problem that most businesses still handle inefficiently. For the next 40 minutes, I explained everything. The technology, the market, the risks, the growth plan. The investor asked difficult questions. I answered every one. Finally, he leaned back. I like your numbers. I waited, but numbers aren't enough. I agree. What makes you different? I thought about my family, about Adrian, about the night I walked out with one suitcase. Then I answered honestly. I know what it feels like to lose everything. He raised an eyebrow. And how does that help your company? It taught me that depending on someone else's promises is dangerous. Victor smiled. The investor studied me for several seconds. Then he said, I want a second meeting. I almost couldn't believe it. Does that mean you're interested? It means you've earned another conversation. I nodded. That's enough for me. After he left, I looked at Victor. I think that went well. Beak,